The conflict in Middle East has escalated. Iran last night launched dozens of ballistic missiles on Israel, forcing the Israeli civilians to rush to bomb shelters. Israel's Iron Dome was seen in action, with the Israeli Defense Forces claiming that a large number of missiles were intercepted and only few hit in central and southern areas. Sirens continued to blare across Israel, with IDF claiming that at least 180 missiles were fired by Iran. Israel decided to close its airspace following the attack. Shortly after, Jordan also announced temporary closure of its airspace, urging citizens to stay home for safety.
הערב איראן שוב תקפה את ישראל במאות טילים. המתקפה הזאת נכשלה. היא סוכלה בזכות מערך ההגנה האווירי של ישראל, שהוא המתקדם ביותר בעולם, ואני מברך את צה"ל על ההישג המרשים. היא גם סוכלה בזכות הערנות והאחריות שגיליתם אתם, אזרחי ישראל. ואני מודה גם לארצות הברית על תמיכתה במאמץ ההגנה שלנו. איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו. אלה שלא מבינים זאת, הם יבינו. נעמוד בכלל שקבענו. מי שתוקף אותנו, אנחנו תוקפים אותו. זה נכון בכל מקום כשאנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע. זה נכון ליהודה ושומרון, זה נכון לעזה, ללבנון, לתימן, לסוריה, וזה נכון גם לאיראן. אנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע בכל מקום.
Iran launched a large-scale attack of over 180 ballistic missiles directly from Iranian soil at the state of Israel. There were a small number of hits in the center of Israel and some other hits in the southern Israel. The majority of the incoming missiles were intercepted by Israel and a defensive coalition led by the United States. Iran's attack is a severe and dangerous escalation. There will be consequences. Our defensive and offensive capabilities are at the highest levels of readiness. Our operational plans are ready. We will respond wherever, whenever, and however we choose.
Now, the Israeli military has warned Iran that the attack would have consequences. In fact, US President Joe Biden has ordered the deployment of US Army in the Middle East to assist Israel in wake of Iranian rocket attacks.
At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and the U.S. military. It's also a testament to intensive planning between the United States and Israel to anticipate and defend against the brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
I'm clear-eyed. Iran is a destabilizing, dangerous force in the Middle East, and today's attack on Israel only further demonstrates that fact. I fully support President Biden's order for the U.S. military to shoot down Iranian missiles targeting Israel, just as we did in April. We are still assessing the impact, but initial indications are that Israel, with our assistance, was able to defeat this attack.
Obviously, this is a significant escalation by Iran, a significant event, and it is equally significant that we were able to step up with Israel and create a situation in which no one was killed in this attack in Israel, so far as we know at this time. We are now going to look at what the appropriate next steps are to secure, first and foremost, American interests, and then to promote stability to the maximum extent possible.
Now, with the conflict escalating, India has issued an advisory for Indian nationals in Israel. The Indian embassy in Israel has asked all the Indian nationals to stay vigilant and adhere to safety protocols as advised by the local authorities, urging Indians living in Israel to exercise caution. The Indian embassy asked them not to travel within the country unnecessarily and stay close to the safety shelters. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar expressed his concern on the wider conflict between Israel and Iran. Speaking at the Carnegie Endowment in US, Jaishankar called Hamas's attack on Israel a terrorist attack. He also underlined that any response by any country must take into account the international humanitarian laws and be careful about its implication for the civilian population.
If one looks at the current situation, I think it would be right to start off with October 7th. We regard October 7th as a terrorist attack. We understand that Israel had a need to respond. But we also believe that any response by any country has to take into account international humanitarian law, that it must be careful about any damage or any implications for civilian populations. And that given what has happened in Gaza, it is important to have some kind of international humanitarian effort out there.
Let's open this up and let's in fact go across to our guest to help us understand the wider implications of it and how India at the moment is viewing the situation. Srinjoy is with us in the studio. We're joined by Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director of India Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Good morning to you, Major General Dhruv Katoch. I'd like to get your first response on the conflict escalating in Middle East and India's standpoint.
Thank you. In my view, I think Iran was caught in a bind. If it did not react, the regime would have been seen, especially amongst their allies, as being helpless. And if it did attack the way it did, then it has thrown itself open now to a counter by Israel and by the Israeli supporters, the US and others. Now, Iran has made their decision. The attack, approximately over 200 missiles have been fired as per the reports which I got from one of my colleagues in Israel. And the damage, as far as the civilian casualties are concerned, is minimal, basically because everybody had gone into their bomb shelters. So to that extent, the human life, the damage has been minimal. There may have been damage otherwise, of which I have not got any reports. But I think the escalation is now going to take place. It has been made very clear by every single Israeli spokesperson and by their prime minister that there will be consequences for what Iran has done. And it is my feeling that the Israelis will respond specifically at a time and place of their choosing. But in my opinion, the target is going to be the nuclear facilities of Iran, which has always been a sore point in the Israeli thinking. They feel an existential threat from a potential nuclear capability of Iran, and they will do everything in their power to take that out. Now an opportunity has presented itself. I think over a period of time, we cannot lay down a time schedule for this, but it will happen over a period of time, and an attempt towards that direction will be made.
All right. Srinjoy, has Iran taken the bait? Many experts believe that.
Well, Iran couldn't have done very much else. And now that it has to wait and see what Israel does and what America does. Now, Israel has options. Are they going to use missiles? Are they going to use their fighter bombers, get them refueled in the air, and then strike the targets that they are looking for? There are other options for Israel. They can hit targets in southern Lebanon. That's those Hezbollah targets. They can look at Iran's proxies in Syria, for instance. So all those options are before Israel. When they will do it, how they will do it, it has to be seen. But there are many options before, and Iran is a big country. So in one sense, there are big targets. There are many military facilities, and all of them may or may not be protected as well. So there is a serious damage that is likely in the future, but lots are expected now. In fact, the trouble has actually just begun, and things are going to get much worse before they get better.
Right. Let me bring in Major General Katoch on that. I believe Israel must have been in this mode. One may call it the war mode. One may call it, the prep mode, ever since that terror attack took place in October last year.
Yes. You see, firstly, I'll go with Srinjoy's statement. The war has just begun. I think this is not the end. We are not looking at the end state. We are looking at the start point. And this, I feel, is the real start point. What happened on October 7th was despicable. But I think equally despicable was the fact that from the very next day onwards, the Israelis were targeted from Lebanon by a series of missiles And those attacks have continued for 11 months. Now, Israel certainly has got the right to think that it is at war, and full efforts will be made to destroy the state. The statements, even after October 7, there was celebration in the streets of Gaza and in many other places that, okay, we've been able to retaliate. Now, had it been a military target, I would have appreciated that. But when the target was civilians, when the women were raped, when little children were killed, I find that unacceptable by any standards for any society. So Israel has a very strong case, and when people say that the reaction has been too much, let me just correlate it with a similar action should it take place against India. Population-wise, if a percentage of the population, like 2,000 plus people were killed in Israel, if that percentage of population had been killed in India in a similar manner, I don't think the Indians would have said, okay, because you have killed so many, we are only going to kill so many and call it a day.
Absolutely. That
is war. It is full-scale war, and they will take it to their logical conclusion by getting the other side down completely, so that this sort of act on the part of these terrorist groups can never, ever be repeated again.
Absolutely.
I think that is the bottom line for Israel. Everybody wants to live in peace.
Everybody wants to live in peace, and perhaps that's the reason why everybody believes Israel had all the right to attack the way it did. We also have Ankit joining us on the broadcast with more details on the dramatic visuals that have come to fore, Ankit, of over 200 missiles being fired.
Most definitely, there were so many missiles, in fact, Swati, in the air at the same time that it really looked like it is some kind of space phenomena. It's like shooting stars or a meteor shower, but these are missiles, these are rockets. They were fired from Iran. Now, what happened last evening? The US was in the vicinity. Israel was alert. We knew when the US officials intimated to the public that Iran is planning a ballistic missile launch. It turned out to be many, many more than that, about 200 missiles of all kinds. And we saw this just in April also, essentially a similar playbook being used. But this time, I think there were also ballistic missiles in the fray. They go higher and they come down faster. They're harder to stop. At the same time, you have Israel's Iron Dome defense system, and Iron Dome isn't the only one. There's also David Sling. There are a multi-tiered level of missile defenses that Israel operates. And so what we have here essentially is, now this is something that people are still not entirely sure about. Are these in fact all rockets that are falling down? Are they all missiles, or are they the remnants of missiles that have already been intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome system? Not all of them exploded, but a number of them did. Did they explode to the kind of capacity that they could? We saw smoke in plumes at some places in the Israeli cities, the big Israeli cities in Tel Aviv especially. But what you can see for sure is that the people are ducking for cover. And this is a facet of Israel where you have, on everyone's phones, you can get minute-to-minute updates and alerts on where they should hide, which is the bomb shelter to which they should rush to. You also saw there was this tweet put out by the Israel Defense Forces where they said 10 million Israelis are the targets, because on a map you had pointers on 10 million different people, essentially counting all the different destinations of these rockets that they could have been heading to. And so this is how you see all of these essentially coming down in a hailstorm of explosives. Essentially, that's what this is. Just take a look at this cityscape. You have a view of a densely populated area, and from the skies are falling missile upon missile. It is an unbelievable barrage unleashed by Iran. If this was any other country, if this was not Israel, if it did not have the Iron Dome defense system, if it did not have America waiting on both wings, also intercepting missiles, then this could have been cataclysmic. The number of casualties that this could have caused is really sheerly mind-boggling. However, it did not have the same impact that it would have, and that's why many people are saying that Iran was backed into a corner. They had to respond. They took an option that they knew would not work, because it hadn't worked a couple of months ago as well, Swati.
The conflict is further going to escalate. Israel has said that there'll be consequences, and Iran responded saying they will be responding to it very severely. Now, Major General Katot, Srinjoy Chaudhary and Ankit will continue to be with us. Quick break. We'll continue our discussion on the other end as well.